Hi guys, I'm Autumn from itsalwaysautumn.com, and I'm going to show you today how to add a fun speed pan effect to one of your photos using Adobe Photoshop Elements 15. This is the photo I'm starting with. It's a picture of my son as he's almost at the finish line of a cross-country meet. I find it's really hard to get great pictures at sporting events because there's so much stuff in the background that just really detracts from the photo. So while I like that I caught this moment of my son, it's probably not the sort of photo I would print out and display. But when we bring it into Photoshop Elements 15 and add the speed pan effect, it blurs out the background and really puts the emphasis on the subject. Plus, it adds a lot of action and motion to the photo as well.
So to add the speed pan effect, you're going to go into guided mode. Speed pan is one of the fun edits. You'll scroll all the way to the bottom. Making sure that the photo you'd like to edit is open, click on speed pan and it'll bring up the guided edit. All of the guided edits in Photoshop Elements 15 have instructions along the right-hand side that walk you through exactly what you need to do. This guided edit will take a little bit longer than some of the other ones we've used before, but you should be able to get through the whole process in 5 to 10 minutes. Your first step is to choose the quick selection tool. Once we click on that, you'll see that we have an add brush and a subtract brush. What we want to do is select our subject from the photo, or whatever it is that we do not want the speed pan blur to be applied to. So we can just click and hold down to start selecting our subject. You'll see that we have these kind of marching lines going around. That shows what is selected so far. And we can continue to click and drag until we get the entire subject selected. Okay, I can zoom in here using either this zoom bar at the top or Control plus to zoom in and Control minus to zoom out. Continue to click and drag and draw all over the boy until we have everything selected. Now you'll see that we have accidentally selected some other stuff that isn't our subject, some of this boy that's right behind him. So we can just go and grab our subtract brush instead. And now we can just start clicking and dragging to subtract from the selection. We can also change the brush size if we want. If we're going to zoom in really closely to fine-tune our selection, we might want to make the brush size a little bit smaller. Now we don't need an exact selection. We're going to be able to fine-tune the effect afterwards, but we do want to get a pretty good outline. So I'm subtracting and then I'm going to add back in some of his arm here. Okay, that's maybe the best I can do right now. Let's subtract this grass. We don't need any of that. And then we can subtract all of this grass here. Again, sometimes when you add or subtract, it'll do a little bit too much. No big deal, you can just go back with the opposite button and take care of it. Okay, so this isn't looking perfect, but it's good enough for our purposes right now. So we'll zoom back out so we can see the whole photo. And then go to the next to the next step. That's number 2, and we click that to add motion blur to the photo. So there's a couple of things we can change once the motion blur is added. We can change the intensity of it. We can make it a really strong effect so that the only thing you really recognize in the photo is your subject. We can make it a much more subtle effect if we'd like. Or we can choose kind of somewhere in the middle. You can just play around with that and decide what you like best. We can also change the angle of the motion blur. You'll want to leave it at the angle it starts at if your subject is moving in a straight line across the photo. But you'll notice that my subject's actually running kind of in a diagonal line across the photo. So we're going to change the angle of the motion blur to reflect that so that it more closely reflects the angle of his movement. Okay, that's looking really good. Our next step is to use the Refine Effect brush. And this is my favorite part of this guided edit because it makes it really easy to clean up these edges. We have an Add brush or a Subtract brush. Anywhere that we should have motion blur that doesn't, we can use the Add brush. We can just go and kind of lightly paint down along the edges of our subject, and that'll add some motion blur and soften up the edge so that we don't have any weird jagged looking edges. This is nice because it's an easy way to fix the fact that our selection wasn't perfect. We can just come in after the fact and clean this up. I just like to go all the way around the edge of the subject with this Refine Effect brush to give us a softer looking edge. Okay, right here it looks like we're missing part of his shorts. Some of the subject got blurred, so we're going to use the Subtract brush and just gently paint over that, and that's going to give us the detail back that we had lost there. Now remember, as I'm doing this, that I am way zoomed in to my photo, and so some of these places where the edge still looks a little bit squirrely is not going to be at all noticeable when I print my photo out. Here's a little section. This is actually part of the arm of the boy behind my son. We need to take that off. You'll also notice my picture looks a little bit pixely. It's because this was from a phone photo that wasn't at the best resolution to start from. Also not going to be a problem once I print this out as a 5x7 or an 8x10. Okay, once I've made it all the way around the photo, I can zoom back out. And then sometimes you'll just get a couple of lines on your picture. These are just areas that got selected and didn't get the blur. So we'll just go over them with the Add brush too to make sure they are blurred as well.
That's it. Now we have a great photo with the speed pan effect added to really pump up the action and blur out the distracting elements and put all of the emphasis on the subject. At this point, we can click the next arrow down on the bottom right. We can continue editing in Quick or in Expert if there's anything else we want to do to the photo, or we can share on social media, or we can just go ahead and save as a JPEG to print the photo out. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to visit itsalwaysautumn.com for more tips, tricks, and Photoshop Elements tutorials.